Hey there, my name is Alex. I am the Silver Mont, and this is my review of Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin, played on PC via the Epic Game Store. Disclaimer, I received review code of this title from Square Enix. That out of the way, let's get started, and I'll try my best to remember the actual name and not just call it Final Fantasy Chaos, which is a way better title if you ask me. So, Stranger of Paradise comes to us from Team Ninja. If you've played Neo, you'll definitely feel some of that DNA here, which likewise shares some of its DNA from the Souls games. Diluted as it is here, mostly you'll just see some Souls-style checkpoint systems. The combat has a slight Neo flavour to it, but it's actually pretty different once you get into the mechanics. In essence, you have your normal attack chain, which you can combo several times, and then a skill attack, which changes depending on your class. Your swordsman skill, for example, will be spinning your greatsword around like a whirlwind, whereas if you do it as a lancer, you can throw your spear. You can also unlock more skills that work like combos. For example, light attack into skill will do something different from 2 light attacks into skill. Unlocking these skills allows you to slot them in to these combo chains. So you might have 2 different skills that you could have for light attack into skill, and you can choose which one you prefer more. You can also dodge, block, and do a parry-esque mechanic where you absorb magic from an enemy, but this also drains your poise. If that is broken, you will suffer a guard crush and lose some MP. The other thing about this magic parry is if you see an enemy doing a certain spell with like a purple name, you can absorb it and then you can shoot it back at them whenever you want. This poise or stamina is only used for blocking and parrying for the most part. Normal attacks and dodges don't use it. So if we had to make a comparison, it would be more like the posture in Shadows Die Twice. This game has a lot of classes to choose from. Almost every Final Fantasy class you can imagine. Warriors, Berserkers, Thief, White Mage, Black Mage, Red Mage, Samurai, Dragoon, and many more. The only thing really missing are Gunner classes. But there's still a healthy number of classes, more than 20. And you can have 2 set up at a time, allowing you to swap between them in combat so you can react to the situation. Maybe you're fighting a knight, so you want to be, I don't know, a samurai. But then you see like a bomb enemy, so you want to swap to a mage and fire off some water magic at it. As for the rest of the gameplay, you'll be in a mission-based story, rather like Neo. You pick a mission from the world map, then you hop in, fighting your way through mostly linear, but with some branching paths and plenty of optional and secret stuff, levels, until you clear them. You can tackle this alone, or in multiplayer co-op. If you're playing solo, you'll still be bringing your party though. They'll just be controlled by the AI. And I found the AI to be relatively stress-free. They didn't cause me any problems, although they were very chatty, which I could potentially see annoying some players. Maybe there's a way to turn that off though. And if there isn't, well, maybe that'll be patched in. If we look at track record with Neo, the developers have been fairly good at trying to improve quality of life like that. So if it does bug you, let the devs know. How about the story? Well, it's a not quite remake of Final Fantasy, as in Final Fantasy 1. You'll see familiar terms and themes and characters, but it's not quite a remake of Final Fantasy 1. Not the same Final Fantasy 1 you will remember, but it's hard to really go into more there. You play as Jack, leader of a small group of heroes that'll grow as you progress, and a man who really wants to kill Chaos. To achieve this, he will pummel any number of foes in his way, which plays into the edgy and violent aspect of this game, which feels very 90s. I'm down for that, honestly. Jack is a very silly man, which makes it all the more entertaining. He will ignore monologues from other characters and walk away playing music on his phone, then brutalize a cactuar. That plays into the gameplay too. Enemies have posture just like you do. When you break them, this break mechanic might be very familiar if you've played Dissidia or Opera Omnia, which are both made by the same studio as this game, by the way. You can finish them off with a grab attack, which are nice little finisher animations. Of course, you can break bosses too, and subject them to a similar beating. In terms of difficulty, well, definitely below things like Neo or Elden Ring, but higher than what you might expect from Final Fantasy. That said, the game comes with 3 starting difficulty options. The lowest one, Story, has an additional casual mode that can be activated to make it an even smoother experience, meaning I expect that just about anyone can beat this game should they have sufficient motivation. The presentation is probably the game's roughest part. Starting the game up, for example, you'll go from cutscene to loading screen to cutscene to about a minute's worth of gameplay, then more cutscenes and loading screens. It isn't what I would call seamless. The graphics themselves are fine, although definitely not pushing the envelope, and they're a little rough in some areas. Character models are probably, well, the highlight of it, whether it's the characters or the enemies that you're fighting. The art style is a little bizarre at times, though. I'm not really sure how to describe it other than jarring, clashing. It's a blend of modern and fantasy that doesn't always work at times, but it is really nice to see classic Final Fantasy mobs or monsters rendered in high detail, and even certain areas that will no doubt remind you of famous places visited in the Final Fantasy franchise. By and large, I see this as a game for 2 audiences or markets: Final Fantasy fans and Neo fans. If you happen to enjoy both Neo and Final Fantasy, like me, then I think it's a no-brainer. I don't have any particular issues with the PC version of the game, other than it not loading the first time I opened it up. But after force closing it and reopening it, everything was fine after that. There's a few PC options, but nothing crazy in-depth. If you've played Neo on PC, you can expect a rather similar experience. What if you've never played Final Fantasy or Neo though, but you like Dark Souls and Elden Ring? Well, then you might enjoy this, but it's still pretty different. That about does it for this review though. I hope it was useful or entertaining. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon.